You were born with a desire and a need to love and connect. And you needed it, not only because you were a good, sweet little baby, but because your nervous system was still forming and needed to learn and practice how to survive and participate in human life. We are tribal creatures, and knowing how to connect with people and build mutual trust and to hold a boundary, these are all skills we were supposed to learn from our parents. And yet so many of us grew up more or less feral on connection and boundaries. And it can make it really, really hard to have a fulfilling relationship or to tell when we're being fed crumbs. So my letter today is from a woman I'll call Maisie. And she writes, "Hi Anna, growing up my dad was and is a self-employed workaholic. He would never take breaks unless he was too sick to move and would never spend a full day at home. I would only see him about an hour in the morning and then at 9 p.m. My family often had to go to family parties alone and then wait until my dad showed up halfway through. He was always caught up in his own things and would not prioritize our family besides monetarily. My family in general does not have healthy boundaries. I believe both my parents have CPTSD, but my dad is very avoidant and fawns, and my mom is avoidant and fights. Our house is small, and we tend to always be in the same room when we're together." This is what a picture. "So we never learned how to be separate in a healthy way. It tends to just build up until someone can't take it, and then they leave for hours without saying when they'll be back. And that was very stressful as a kid since it was too extreme, spending every second together when we were annoyed or having someone leave with no endpoint. I have been in an entirely long-distance relationship for about 2 years. My boyfriend and I met in college, but only started spending time alone together a week before everything was shut down for COVID. We had known each other for a few months before that, but only talked in group settings with mutual friends. Neither of us have been in a long-term relationship before this. We've been a driving distance of 4+ hours our whole relationship, so building a connection has taken a lot longer than I assume it would in normal relationships. A recurring fight between us is that he is very emotionally distant when we're not together. He does not like texting, calling, or video chat. He always says that he prefers to talk in person. But when we visit, which is only about once a month because of the drive, he tends to shut down and box me out emotionally about 3 days in. When he boxes me out, I tend to shut down or get very passive-aggressive and start fights. He also likes to walk around constantly, like walk around outside or alone in new towns. But that often leaves me alone with no sense of when he's coming back. When I get upset, he feels like he can't leave, which makes more tension. I want to note that the first few days are nice and we get along. I feel very insecure in the relationship sometimes because we have a communication disconnect. I feel like all of my communication needs have to just not exist. There it is. Since he is uncomfortable using the phone. Plus, since he always says he doesn't like talking on the phone, that also makes me feel abandoned, and then I start to fight. I feel like that is the only way he responds, and I know that is bad for the relationship. I feel like he's often too avoidant, but since that is a major trigger from growing up, I really don't know how to handle it. I know that he will come back and that he cares about me, but I know that when I start fights, when I feel triggered, it only makes it worse for us. It is very hard to deal with our issues when we do not communicate well over the phone and only see each other once a month. I have tried the daily practice a couple times, but I have not done it consistently. It's helped, but I have so much to unpack that I am still writing 4 pages of fears and resentments every time. It's hard to know if the relationship is worth it since it feels like we barely can even build a consistent connection. Any advice would be appreciated. Maisie." All right, Maisie. I was circling things as I went. I just wanted to read through your whole story and then come back and see. I'm going to read back to you what you told me. I think I can help. Okay. So you had this parent situation, very unusual home, very small, everybody stuck together, and nobody learned how to deal with conflict except to run away. So, escaping conflict It's really good in the short run. In the long run, it sort of thwarts development. There's no personal growth there to learn how do you talk through a conflict and resolve it. That's also a reason why drugs and alcohol are a problem in relationships, because if you just kind of like blot it out, whether it's drugs, alcohol, running away, food, just weed, whatever it is, if you're blotting it out, there's a whole bunch of feelings that are going unprocessed. And that's one of the things I've noticed about people who smoke a lot of pot is I've just noticed there's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of suppressed anger, and when they get angry, they get really angry. And that's consistent with CPTSD, really, that there's emotional dysregulation and then some attempt to try to control emotions somehow. So some of us use avoidant relationships, some of us use drugs, some of us use food, and we're working our way towards the day when we can kind of face what those feelings are, what the thought. It's not all about feelings, it's also just thoughts, beliefs that we have, that we get on paper in the daily practice. We're talking about the daily practice. So for anybody new to the channel, the daily practice is a set of 2 techniques that I've been using for 28 years, and I teach everybody. It's free. There's always a link to it down below in the description section. It's also on the free tools page of my website. But it's a writing technique where you name your fearful and resentful thoughts, ask for them to be removed or release them, as the case may be, depending on your spiritual beliefs, and then a calm meditation. So just explaining this reference to the daily practice that Maisie brought up, yes, it's a way to start moving your feelings through. The feelings build up because you're alive and because a lot has happened and because you're in a painful situation right now. Where will they go? And what happens if there's no healthy way to process them, it can distort your perception. And that's why you're afraid that you can't really read the situation. I think this situation is pretty plain, actually. And I think you know what it is that I will see in it and what other people will see in it. And I'll just cut to the chase. This sounds like a crap relationship, terrible crap fit. I'm not getting it. He sounds like a very difficult, avoidant person. And while it's understandable that some people are avoidant, it doesn't make for a good relationship. This thing where he can't talk on the phone or text, and if you only see each other once a month, this sounds like a situation of convenience, not a relationship. I don't hear any part where your feelings and what you need out of it. Now, you'll hear, I don't really talk about needs. When people say I need my needs met, I like to be very clean. We're never technically abandoned as adults, and we don't technically have needs that other people need to meet unless we are unable to care for ourselves for some reason. Then there are stages in life when we all need other people to care for us. And so that's when we get our needs met. I find it helpful just to remember the things I actually need, I don't need a partner to make happen for me. So they don't have to meet my needs. They meet my hopes. They meet my desires or my hopes, or they don't. But it's really helpful to recognize it's something you want, because if you're not getting something you want, that means one thing. It means, oh, maybe you need to go do something else, versus what you need, which is why we get angry. The anger, I'm just projecting here, but when you get angry at the way he just completely emotionally neglects you and anything that you would want to do with time and that you want to connect, I assume this is a sexual relationship, of course you want to connect and talk and stay connected. What could be more natural? So he won't give that to you, and you fight. So I want you to stop beating yourself up for fighting. Yes, the anger is probably coming from that well of child pain down there, baby pain, where a baby is mad when their needs aren't met. There's anger in the way babies cry, and you see that come up in us, when relationships are empty. The thing about CPTSD is that we hang around for this, and we keep thinking, just as it's only right and just that your mom and dad would have stopped their shenanigans and stopped and paid attention to you and taught you how to live, that is the right thing. It's not what all of us got. Not everybody is capable of giving that, and that's the hand you were dealt, and kind of similar to mine. And so it's not right, but it is so. With a partner, they don't owe you anything. When you're dating somebody, a marriage is sort of an agreement, or some kind of a commitment is an agreement that you will help someone in some way that you mutually understand. And so marriage is a common template for that, and a very strong one and quite serious. If you marry somebody, they don't always tell you this, because the first time I got married, it was very quickly done. And what I didn't know until later is that, like, now you share the debt of their tax bill. Who knew? People don't talk about that, but it's like a promise, it's a responsibility. And now I'm married for real with a full consciousness of all the responsibilities. And it means that if my husband or I really feel like we need to talk, the other person has an obligation to find a time to do that and to show up for that conversation. That's what our commitment means, among many other things. So you're going without a commitment, and you're backfilling this big gap there in somebody not giving you just basics of boyfriend-girlfriend stuff. You're backfilling it with this idea that maybe it's just your childhood stuff. And we all do that. And your childhood stuff is what's telling you to stay in this relationship. Your common sense is telling you that this is, BS. This is not good. And it's never going to feel good. Somebody cannot have this. Yeah. No, you want a relationship. You actually want to talk and be connected. You've picked a turnip. No human being is a turnip. But as partners go, this is somebody who cannot do it. They cannot do it. So it's hard to face. When we get attached so very hard, right? This thing where you fight, I agree that it would be good for you to work on that. I think if you couldn't fight about it, what you'd be forced to recognize, because fighting, it's a release of sorts. It's an escape from the feelings when you feel like, oh my gosh, this guy really doesn't love me, and this is not going to work. I'm going to have to leave. That is such a terrible thought to a person with CPTSD who's been neglected, that a fight just feels like, oh yay, it's like the dog chasing the squirrel, something else to go after instead of the pain of what you're not getting. And it's sad. But you can do better. You can. The path to true love begins with deciding to no longer have crap fit love. And crap fit, that's my word for when we fit ourselves to situations that are actually unacceptable, people with characteristics that are actually unacceptable to us. You get to decide what you really want, and you get to own that. And so many of us have had that squashed down. We somehow feel it's shameful and unspeakable that we want someone to love us and stay with us. You get to own that. You get to have that. That is okay. Having CPTSD is a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances growing up. Falling in love and wanting a commitment is a normal reaction to being alive. So you're okay. You're okay. You're just crap fitting. That's all. That's what this sounds like. And part of you knows to rail against the injustice of it. But all's fair. When you're an adult, in love, in a relationship, all is fair. You can only have what another person is willing to give. So that's what I suggest to you. You said that you've done the daily practice a couple times. Come back. Come do it for real. Do it for real twice a day. Come take, you can come to the free calls that I lead for everybody who takes the free course. If you become a member, you can come to daily, peer-led daily practice calls. We have 3 or 4 a day. It's pretty wonderful, and a community of members who they're using the daily practice, they're supporting each other in it. And it's a way that you can have friendships with people who are also walking the same path and agree with this idea. We need a way to process these fearful and resentful thoughts. Going out and trying to talk about them all the time isn't always productive for those of us who have, CPTSD hamsters running in a wheel in there, just everything's terrible, everything's terrible. You tell that to people and it can push them away. So we're in a group of friends who understand one another, and we support each other. And there's something about when you write and you read to another person and you laugh together about what you were just thinking. It's not always funny, but it often is. And I love that. I love it when my fears are revealed to me to just be funny. And I get more lighthearted about it. Other times I have fearful or resentful thoughts. And when all the stuff is cleared away after I've used the daily practice, what's left is, I got to do something about that. That actually is a problem. So we just get more clear-headed and lucid. Whenever I've avoided the daily practice, it was always because I was in a terrible relationship. And I think I knew on some level that if I were to name my fears and resentments and that feeling of clarity and truth came in, I would know that I'd have to leave the relationship. And like so many CPTSD kids, it's easy to get in, it's all too easy to get into a relationship, and it's almost impossible to get out. That abandonment wound is just it's just like a metal collar on you. It's terrible. So we help each other. We help each other just take these things off and be free. You can face reality. Reality feels good. You know, the truth feels good when you're just like, yeah, this is bullshit, huh? Yeah. You know, it feels good and you deserve better. So another thing you can do is, you know, really stake a claim on what you actually want. Write it down. Don't pull your punches. Don't say, oh, I want a life partner. Like, I don't think you want a life partner. You have a life partner. You want somebody who loves you. And if that's a spouse, say it. And I think mostly when I talk to people and ask them to be honest, it's usually that. When people say life partner, I say, so that implies no commitment? And they go, oh, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. I go, so is what you want, is your vision that you would have a relationship that doesn't last forever, that at some point people leave? They would go, no, no, I want it to last. And I'm like, well, that's a spouse. That's a spouse. Yeah, you could nitpick about the financial arrangement, but whatever it is that is your heart's desire of what you really most want, like name it, write it down. Just the act of writing it down. This is not magic. I'm not telling you to like manifest it or anything. You just write it down so that you know, so that you're square with yourself, that you're honest with yourself about where you're coming from. And that will start to create an agitation when you're getting into situations that are not that. You don't have spouse material happening here. You don't even have boyfriend material. I mean, somebody who won't call you, that's not, I don't know. This is a thing of convenience. So when that's going on, you're going to feel agitation. It's going to start to feel really wrong. And you're thinking it's wrong. You're writing to me. You're in doubt, but that's because you were programmed as a child to doubt your perceptions. That when you feel like your needs aren't being met, that you're sad, that you're not being loved, it's like, no, actually, you know, everything's fine. You got too good at that. It's time to take it off. It's time to take it off and let your standards come to the forefront of like, no, I get to be loved. That's what I want. I'm worth it. So if you love this topic, watching this, I've got a video lined up for you. It's about how trauma can make you all too comfortable with avoidant partners. I've got that video right here, and I will see you very soon.